SPIRITWATCHER178 on September 16th at 6:28 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I wanted to go over what I'm going to be revealing very soon in the future, a lot more on, and this is what's called the real widow's mite. And it goes back to a story of an occultist writer, and I'll try to find the name as soon as I can, but he was a French occultist that was trying to discredit Jesus Christ because he was a devout Satanist of the occult, and he was elite, and he had a lot of money, so he was able to travel around the world and in his attempt to debunk the real Jesus Christ for 30 years, oddly enough. And so he went on this quest, and for 30 years he followed the everywhere Jesus and Joseph of Arimathea during his lost years of 30 years went to throughout the world. And every time he went to each location, like India, North America, South America, etc., he found not only was it true, but it was far more legendary than he can ever imagine. And it was phenomenal of what Jesus Christ really had done during those 30 years, and learned and taught, and not just taught, but learned and communicated, and it was phenomenal. And so this real widow's mite I'm talking about was given out by the money changers of the Temple Mount at the time in around 71 AD during the first revolt. And when the temple was sacked and the money flew everywhere, including the gold and silver melted into the streets and everything, these followers of Jesus Christ, approximately about 20,000 of them, in attempt, gathered all of these coins that were given out as change. Not the gold and silver or anything like that, but the change that was given out by the temple. Because this change was a decree given out by the supreme Jewish authority at that time, which was a cabal. Not the Jewish religion itself, but a cabal that was controlling it. Manipulating the people, because they owned the temple and the Romans basically owned them. So it was a decree on this coin that they will crucify any participants in the temple until death if they disobey any of the rules on the Temple Mount. So the followers gathered as many coins as they could. Hundreds, maybe thousands, who knows. And then they had to flee because the 10th Roman Legion was after them, and the 9th Roman Legion was after them. And they fled to, I believe, what was a cave system number 10 in the Aegean Desert, where they hid, and they hid for about 2 weeks when their front of the cave was sieged by the Roman soldiers at that time. And the Roman soldiers got bored, I guess, and built a bonfire in front of the cave, suffocating every man or every woman and child and elderly in that cave. There was no men of any fighting age because they were all fighting the revolt against the Roman soldiers, because everyone of fighting age had to flee and fight. And they swallow these coins in an attempt to keep the Roman soldiers from finding them, because this was evidence as to what led to Jesus Christ's actual crucifixion and what was the meaning behind it, and even Judas Iscariot's suicide. A direct information source to proving that Jesus Christ was real and did die for a curse that was placed on that temple. It was a death threat. And again, it was only a small cabal that was doing that, not the Jewish religion. And that's where these elites, if you want to call it that, control the narrative and control. It's a matrix of control. Organized religion in general is. It's not bad to be a part of an organized religion as long as you have an open mind for other people, I believe, because that's what the teachers of the Ancient of Days have taught us. to love one another. And so going back to this coin, the Roman soldiers then cut open the bodies and retrieved over 100 or 1,000. Who knows how many they retrieved, but I think it was hundreds, maybe. And that's where the term blood money came from. And it's they were housed finally in the Israel Antiquity Authority Museum, and they were on display during 2013, 2014, because I saw the documentary on it. Unfortunately, that and a lot of it on the internet has been scrubbed, but I will try to look at my archives and see if I can find it. Or if anybody else out there can find it, that would be great too, because I'll attach a photo of this widow's mite I'm talking about, so all of you can look it up too and find out this legendary story of Jesus Christ. This author that wrote this book called Keepers of the Coins, and much, much more with this coin. You'll find out the truth. And it's a truth that must be told, because we're living in a new age. We're coming into a new age very quickly, very quickly. And, some are going to, hold on to it and, take on to this new age with confidence, while others are going to cower in it because it's going to be powerful. But never lose sight of keeping love in your heart and love in your minds. At least if you don't like the other person, have love in your heart for them. Don't wish them harm. Don't wish them any ill will. Just have mutual respect for one another. Now, of course, you get attacked. Of course, you have the right to defend yourself. But at least have mutual respect for someone else's right to exist. Simple as that. And, that's what Jesus was taught. And I'll have a part 2 and a follow-up on this widow's mite I'm talking about. The real widow's mite, not the one that's out there that's been claimed, that leptin version. That's not. This is the real widow's mite. And I believe it was a second or third generation minting of this particular widow's mite. And this was around in Jesus' time. And this is why Jesus targeted the money changers, because one of the people that was, I think it was Peter or Paul, sorry, but Paul, I believe, gave him this coin, showed him because out of shock, and Jesus saw it for what it was, and that's why he went back to the temple and overturned the money changers. How dare they put a curse onto this temple? And that's what they did. A death threat, a direct breath threat, was a curse onto that temple. And he knew full well of what he was facing in the future by what was on that decree, on that coin. He knew full well. But none of his disciples, none of his other people knew, other than him and the one that handed him the coin. And when Judas betrayed him for 30 talents of silver, because he didn't understand why and what he did that for and everything else, he was handed that coin as to why he did what he did. And Judas Iscariot then later, well, And that's a sad story, but that needs to be told. And I will have a follow-up again and again on this, because it's a story that really is phenomenal. And I'll share much more on too, of a lot of other things. But getting to know the real Jesus Christ is been an honor for me, and I hope that others find it too. Thank you for listening to me. This has been Spirit Watcher 178. Take care, everyone, and God bless to everyone out there.